Hello everyone, welcome to Engineered Learnings. Engineered Learnings has been created as an effort to help and reach out to all the engineering students, aspirants and professionals out there with the basic understanding and the crux of the topics important for placements, vivas, semesters, competitive examinations and all types of interviews. So let's go to today's topic. Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. So today's topic is a very interesting topic. I'm very excited to discuss about it because I have faced numerous questions in the over the comment section of YouTube, over email and over personal messages that please make a video on Z Associates, Guesstimates, puzzles and brain teasers, as many people have been appearing for off-campus interview, particularly in the situation of lockdown. They have been approaching students over video conferencing to take their interviews, and the people are really struggling to find a way through Guesstimates, puzzles and brain teasers. In fact, believe me, it is one of the toughest rounds of Z Associates to crack. I have gone for the interview 2 times and I have faced equal and similar difficulties in solving the Guesstimates, in particular in the EBI or the final HR round. They ask Guesstimates in the EBI and the final HR round, that is the evidence-based interview, and the final HR interview, the fit round. They ask you Guesstimates, and when the interview is going all smooth and you are comfortable, one sudden question out of the blue will pop up and you will wonder how to solve or what should be the approach to solve this problem. So I'm going to talk about a generalized approach. Most of the people go for this kind of a approach by considering a basis to a problem. Now you can have your own approach. Let me tell you, there is no, mark my words, there is no correct approach to solving a guesstimate. Yes, there may be a correct answer to a puzzle, or there may be a correct answer to a brain teaser, or when you play with exact numbers, there may be a correct approach or a correct answer. But with guesstimates, there is no correct approach or there is no correct answer. You need to believe that. And they stress most on guesstimates because they want to see your approach or your kind of thinking. So you can have your own basis, you can have your own kind of thinking, but I'm going to give you a structural approach, or the structure you should go by or abide by when you're trying to solve guesstimates, particularly for ZS Associates, because guesstimates are asked by very few companies and ZS is one of them. They're a business consultancy company and they really want to churn your mind and test your patience and test your abilities to think beyond the box, and how much can you how close can you reach to the actual figure. They would like to see that, and that's why they go for guesstimates. So now you need to have a certain basis and a certain idea before you go for this guesstimates interview or a EBI. So you need to prepare on some grounds before you go for this interview. I'm going to tell you one by one what are the things that you need to prepare before going for this EBI round or before going for this guesstimates round. So let me tell you my experience. I have faced basically 4 to 5 questions in ZS about guesstimates, puzzles and brain teasers. So first, when ZS came on campus, this was the question that was asked in our computer proctored webcam interview. That is, you will have to speak for 3 minutes, that is pitch in your answer for 3 minutes. There will be 7 questions which will be a mixed bag of HR questions, personal CV based questions, decision making questions and guesstimates, or rather puzzles, or more appropriately a quant problem to see your thinking capability and how quickly can you approach the game. And so basically this was the question that was asked in that round, computer proctored round. I was given 1 minute to think and 3 minutes to answer this question, 1 minute to structure my answer. So basically, how much paint is required for a 10 by 10 wall? That is the 10 meter by 10 meter wall. How much paint do you require to paint the wall? So you need to have an idea about like how much paint is required to paint a 1 meter square wall. So there can be multiple bases, there can be multiple approaches, I have already said. So the basis for this question can be 2. That is, you know, amount of paint that you would require per meter square. This can be one approach. Per meter square paint, how much per meter square area, how much paint do you usually need? This can be one basis. The more logical basis which I followed, or which I tried to crack the answer through, was is a 10 by 10 wall, and the thickness of the paint is 0. Like what would be a thickness of this wall paint that is there behind me? It is 0.001 meter or 0.01 meter as it favors you. It's like 1 millimeter, which makes it 0.001 meter. So if I consider thickness is 0.001 meter, so that gives me the volume of paint, that would be required to paint a 10 by 10 wall, and that solves my question. Now you may be given a question where you will be required to answer that what is the, not the amount, but what is the money that you would need to paint a 10 by 10 wall. Now this depends on what kind of paint you are using, whether you are using a primer paint only or you are using Asian paints. Now different brands have different prices, so accordingly you need to know the market as well. Moreover, you need to understand one thing, that if by going by this approach, that is how much amount of paint is required, it seems very easy, but actually that is the thing that needs to come to your mind, strike to your mind straight away when you are seeing this type of questions. And this will only come by reading more and more questions like this. So what happens is 10 by 10 wall is there, the thickness is 0.001 meter, that is 1 millimeter thickness, and you multiply 10 into 10 into 0.001, so that gives me the amount in meter cube, the volume of paint that is existing on this wall. Now one thing is that this wall is having a 1 millimeter thickness after the paint has dried up. Now the paint has a lot of volatile matter. You need to know this for a fact. What happens is whenever the paint dries up, it evaporates, the volatile portion or the oil portion just keeps on evaporating, and the paint in itself, the pigment in itself, the dry portion remains back. So it's like evaporation of the volatile portion or the oil portion. So the main portion of the paint in itself is oil. So if you are considering it to be a 1 millimeter thickness now, you will have to consider at least double or 2.5 times the thickness in actual when the paint was applied. So if you calculate the volume by this method, that is 10 into 10 into 0.001, the volume, if you calculate, you will have to multiply that by 2 or 2.5 times to get the actual amount of paint that would have been required. Because half of the paint, trust me, 60% or half of the paint just vanishes off or evaporates off, because most of it is volatile linseed oil, the paint manufacturing process. So what remains is that dry portion, and that corresponds to just half of the amount of paint that was initially applied. So you need to know these facts. You need to know these facts. You need to know the market. You need to know these things needs to strike your mind. Like you don't need to know a lot of engineering or stuff to answer this type of questions. The basic engineering would do. Like this paint is dry paint. A wet paint would be thicker than the dry paint. This is the basics that is required to solve this problem. So this is the kind of guesstimate that you might get. One more guesstimate that was very common was in a Boeing 737 flight, how many tennis balls can you fit? Now you need to know the radius of each tennis ball, and thus you get the volume of each tennis ball by simply doing 4 by 3 pi r cube gives me the volume, where r is the radius of each ball. Now you need to know, like physically visualize the radius of one ball, because it's not possible to get the exact figure. For a Boeing 737, you need to consider it to be a cylindrical vessel, where you need to have an idea. Now you need to have these ideas when you go for an EBI. That is what I'm saying. That is why I was saying that you need to know certain things, like the length of the aeroplane. They ask mostly from Boeing 737, like from flights. So you need to know the basic length of the flight. You need to know the basic diameter of the flight, so that you can consider it to be a cylindrical body, and then divide it by the volume of the balls. Now if the flight is like filled up by people, then obviously people will take some amount of volume. So in a flight, if you see, there are 30 seats on either sides, so it's like 30 into 3, 90 people on this side, 90 people on that side, 180 total people, and air hostess maybe 3 to 4 and pilots 2, so it corresponds to about 185, 186 people in a flight. And if you consider a general like body volume of one individual, which I'm not going to tell because I'm not going to play with numbers. Very important, guys. Whenever you go for a guesstimate, it's very, very clear that you will have to deal with numbers. But you as an interviewee, or you as a aspirant should always try to avoid numbers. You should go for the approach. You should tell the interviewer that I am not very sure about the number, but this is the approach that we can always take. At least I do it, and it has worked well for me. I've cleared the EBI round. Yes, the fit round didn't go well for me both the times, but I've cleared the EBI round by just saying that I do not state numbers until I'm very, very confident about it. But this can be the approach to the problem. So you can just trick the interviewer rather than going into direct numbers, which can be troublesome for you at times, because if you are doing it wrong, if you're going it absolutely wrong, you're not going to reach close to the figure, and that's going to give the give the view to the interviewer that you are not at all prepared, or you do not have any idea, because you are nowhere near to the actual figure. But if you rather try to trick the interviewer into believing that you do not play with numbers until you are very clear in your mind, or you are absolutely sure about it, you go for the approach. So you tell the approach, like for this case, Boeing 736, you need to tell the approach. This is the radius, this is the length. I'm going to find it pi r squared h. I'm going to find the volume, and I'm going to divide it by the number of balls. If the people are sitting, I'm going to consider like average volume of one person. 186 into that average volume is going to give me the amount of volume that is filled. So total volume minus that volume is going to give me the void volume, divided by the total number of balls volume is going to give me how many balls can fit if the persons are already sitting in their respective chairs. So these are the type of questions. Now, the second question that was asked was, this was asked in the HR fit round, how many people in on-campus interview, how many people are currently flying in India? This is a very, very interesting question. It certainly popped up. Like, you have a pen or paper. He asked me over the phone. It was a telephonic interview. He asked me that, do you have a pen and paper? I would like to ask you one simple question. How many people are currently flying in India? Now, this is a very interesting question. Now, you need to have a basis. As I have already told you, need to have a basis. So what is going to be the basis for this question? I'm rubbing this for the moment. The basis for this question. The basis for this question can be population, can be number of flights. Now, different people, number of flights, airports, different people have different approach. If you know exactly the number of airports and the number of flights flying each day from one airport, it is considering supposedly in 1 hour there are approximately 3 to 4 domestic flights, and for a day how many number of domestic flights can be then available. For the hour, how many domestic flights are flying in each airport. If you know that number, and if you're confident about like the number of flights and the number of airports in India, you can straight away go for these number of flights fly from each airport. These are the total number of airports. So multiply that, you're going to get the total number of flights that are currently flying in India. 186 is the capacity in general for a domestic flight, and hence 186 multiplied by the number of flights that are flying in this hour is going to fetch me the number that is flying in India. Now, interestingly, they didn't ask me about the word, otherwise it would have been a goof up, because you need to work a lot. You do not have idea about the number of airports worldwide, and there will be some people flying domestic, some people flying international. There will be a lot of fuzz around that. That's why he said how many people are currently flying in India, because that's only giving me the figures of domestic flights. So if you have the idea of number of domestic flights that leave per hour and number of airports in India, combined small, big. Now, the big airports will always have more number of domestic flights flying in the hour rather than small airports. So you need to consider that fact as well. If I'm considering a V. Savarkar airport, there are going to be less number of flights, less number of domestic flights flying from there or arriving to there. And there are going to be always more number of flights from Delhi, from connecting portions from the mega cities. So you need to consider that as well. If you consider for like the mega cities or for the big cities, if you consider it to be like 5 to 6 domestic flights an hour, for small airports like V. Savarkar airport, you need to consider it to be like 2 to 3 domestic flights. So you need to work on that. Another approach that I went through is population. Because I do not have any idea about the number of flights and the number of airports, no clear idea about it, I go by population. I generally love going by population. Now listen to this. I am not going to deal with numbers. You are going to deal with numbers. Whenever you are going for a Z Associates guesstimates, you should have a few things clear in your mind, as I was already telling you. You should have an idea about the population of the megacities, that is metropolitan cities. You need to have an idea about the population, like 40 lakhs, 45 lakhs. You need to have a population idea about the total population of India. So Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai, these are the metropolitan, the megacities. You need to have an idea about their population. You need to have an idea about India's population. You need to have an idea about rural and urban population, rural, urban. You need to have that is percentage, breakup percentage. You need to have an idea about age percentage, that is below 18, how many people are there, 18 to 30, how many people are there, because when it comes to commodities like mobile phones, how many people buy cars, how many people use mobile phones, so you can break that in terms of age. So you need to narrow down the approach. So you need to know rural urban percentage, you need to know age percentage, you need to know money, that is monetary flow, or rather in simple terms if I say rich or poor. So rich or poor, you need to know rich or poor percentage in India. Now I approach the game like this. For this problem I'm discussing, rest of the problems the approach is almost going to be the same. So like population, if the population is supposedly India's population is 140 crores, so 1.4 billion people, out of which I've considered 30% are urban population, 70% is rural population. Now this you need to have an idea of, if it is 75-25, so you need to work on 70% of supposedly X, 70% of X, where X is my total population. Now that gives me the urban population. Now these urban population, how many people are rich, how many people are poor. So you need to know the rich or poor percentage. Now rich or poor percentage in terms of urban population, if supposedly rich percentage is only 20%, so 20% of 70%. So this is going to be the figure of rich people. Now out of these rich people, only 2 to 3% are frequent flyers, that is they fly every week. So I'm going to consider 2% of this. So these are my frequent flyers. So out of this 2%, the frequent flyers, I'm considering just about 20 to 30% currently flying. So 20% of this currently flying in the hour for the day, divided by 24. So per hour, these many persons are flying. And considering non-frequent flyers, considering a chance, it is 1% of the urban population, or the rich population rather, 20% of 70% of X into 1%. So that 1%, or rather 80% it will be, because 80% is non-frequent flyers. Sorry, it will be 20% only, and into 98%, because 2% are frequent flyers, 98% are non-frequent flyers. Out of that, 1% or 2% only are traveling at the moment in the hour. So these two figures added up will give you an approximate figure, and let me tell you, I was very close to the actual figure. So this is going to be your approach. So population can be one approach. Second approach is the number of airports and number of flights. So you need to select a basis. It's very important that you select a basis. In most cases, it's population. Population, then narrowing down the scope by going for age, going for money, going for rural urban, going for megacities. So these are the things. How many rectangles are there in a chessboard? Very important question and very interesting. This was asked in an off-campus interview over the telephonic interview that I faced before going to Gurgaon, because I was called to Gurgaon. So again, it is a permutation and combination question. You can easily solve it. I don't think that I need to go into the vivid details of it. And the final question that popped up in the CS Associates EBI interview when I went for the off-campus interview was, how many people from outside Calcutta, since I am from Calcutta, how many people from outside Calcutta visit during the Durga Puja? Very interesting question. Once again, the population thing you can play with. Like if I consider 45 lakhs is my Calcutta population and West Bengal population, you need to know that West Bengal population is X. So if I if I subtract 45 lakhs, I'm going to know the rest of the West Bengal population. Now most of the people travel from villages to Calcutta for the puja occasion. So it's like X minus 45 lakhs is the people living outside Calcutta but within West Bengal. So about supposedly 2% of them visit Calcutta. Now I'm giving this 2%, it's a very gross figure, but actually you can work out like out of this X minus 45 lakhs that are outside Calcutta but inside West Bengal, 70% is from the rural population, and rural population mostly do visit in the puja. So out of the 70%, 2% do visit. Now this is a quite a interesting number. From outside West Bengal, the number of people that visit, you can straight away go for the what you call is money, whether they can afford the travel to West Bengal. So it's like only 20% of them can afford. And out of this 20%, only about 2% of that 20% will go to West Bengal for the pujas, 1% or 2%. So 2% or 1% of 20% of outside West Bengal population. Outside West Bengal population who can afford to go or who can go, and from all over the world, a very minute figure. Once again, you can calculate in terms of population. So most of the times the basis is population, and drilling down is on the basis of age and rural urban and social status and money. These are the things. Now some questions that I would like to solve, I would like you to solve, are how many photographs are clicked in a football match? A very interesting question. This was asked to my fellow colleague who appeared for the ZS Associates interview. One more question would be how many people are currently flying all over the world? So these two questions I would like you to solve, and if you get the answers, then I would request you to leave the same in the comment section, that I can go for this approach. There is no right or wrong answer, I'm telling you again. It's only about the approach. So I think I will conclude it here. There are many more questions on Guesstimates, but I think I've made the approach clear or the structure clear. Now you can have your own basis and you can have certain things in your mind. You always need to know certain figures before you go into the interview, because they are going to talk in numbers. But you try to avoid numbers as much as possible. But then they will compel you to talk in terms of numbers, and when they do that, we'll have to talk in terms of numbers. So I think that's it for today. If you liked our work, do like, comment the two questions that I've asked. If you know the answers, comment in the comment section. If you have any problem, you can mail us. You can always talk to us. So subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much.